Let's talk. More ball, fewer infractions. This begins in 2020. The future is near. More access, more everyone, more everything.
February 20th, 2019. Show number 3.
This is history begun. This is the XFL.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, The Mark, and on this week's show, we do a recap of your team names, and there's some good ones in there, plus Jim Zorn coaching rumor, and so much more. So how do you get in touch with the show? It's simple. Email podcast@xflnewshub.com with your MP3s or thoughts, or you can reach us on Twitter. Just use the hashtag XFLWIR. Cutoff time is 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. And remember to leave us a review on iTunes and we'll read it on the show. That being said, if you need any help with how to make phone calls for the show, you can message me and I can show you how with a tutorial guide on how to make fun, cool phone calls for the show. Just record them on your PC, email them to me, add your take to whatever you need to for the XFL Nation to hear. So, without further ado, let's just get into the week that was the XFL. So, names like Jim Haslett, Pep Hamilton have been rumored out there for a while, but nothing has been set in stone like Bob Stoops. However, former Seahawk quarterback and Washington Redskin head coach Jim Zorn will reportedly be one of the new XFL coaches/GMs for the 2020 season. This is according to NFL reporter Alex Marvez. On his SiriusXM NFL show, he posted the following: sources tell me Jim Zorn is expected to join the XFL coaching ranks. Now, Zorn has not been tied to any particular team yet, though it's fair to speculate Seattle could be a top contender. Zorn, who lives in Washington, was the starting quarterback for the Seahawks for 8 seasons and was inducted into the team's Ring of Honor in 1991. Seattle's XFL team will play at CenturyLink Field, the home of the NFL's Seahawks. Makes sense. Zorn's background a little bit: he was a former football player and coach in the National Football League. He was a left-handed quarterback and is best known as the starting quarterback, as we said, of Seattle for 8 seasons. From 2001 until 2007, before being, he was quarterback's coach, I should say, for the Seahawks from 2001 until the 2007 season, before being hired by the Washington Redskins to be their head coach starting in the 2008 season. That didn't go very well. I am a resident of Maryland, and I can tell you I remember the Jim Zorn era. Not very good. Shortly after being fired following the 2009 season, Zorn was hired as a quarterback's coach for the Baltimore Ravens. Zorn was released as quarterback coach in 2011, which I thought they felt like he did an okay job. Then he joined the Kansas City Chiefs as their quarterback's coach in 2011 as well. We haven't heard much from him since 2012, but being an offensive guy and ties to Seattle seems like a great fit for the XFL. Jim Zorn, Seattle. DC, Pep Hamilton, Bob Stoops, Dallas. Not really sure where Jim Haslett, maybe Tampa. Rounding out the tree. These are all names. Interesting names, guys with NFL pedigree and background. I don't have a problem with the pick at all. I think it would be a great pickup for the XFL. If any league is to be successful, you're going to need some refs, right? Well, XFL Commissioner and CEO Oliver Luck recently appeared on Dan Silo's radio program on 97.3 The Fan in San Diego. Talk about a number of topics regarding the AAF and the XFL. During the conversation, Luck announced that former NFL VP of Officiating Dean Ballandino will be working with the XFL. Again, another good hire. An official title or name of the role hasn't been given yet, but it was mentioned that Ballandino previously worked for Fox Sports, which is a potential landing place for the XFL. Luck also discussed the success of the AAF had on their opening weekend, as well as their talent and some other things. He mentioned that the broadcast partner and TV deals will be happening soon, and of course talked about Bob Stoops. On the hiring of Dean Ballandino, Luck said that, quote, "You kind of need professionalism everywhere." Luck went on to talk about his credibility and how important that is when it comes to officiating. It is being said that this is a huge pickup for the XFL and will definitely add credibility to their referees and to the quality of officiating. More information on this and so much more, head over to XFL News Hub as we hear more. And we have the interview with Dan Silo on XFLNewsHub.com. I think it's a great idea. Good pickup for another good hire by Vince and the XFL. All right, we'll be back with your team names. I know you're waiting for it. Some of them made me laugh. Some of them I was like, that's a good name. We have that and so much more right after this. Stay tuned. There is only one place that you can get all your XFL news. That is XFLNewsHub.com. We go all the way back from the beginning of time for the XFL all the way up to today's stuff, where you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. All those locations to get all your XFL news. We are your number one source of XFL football news from now all the way until February 2020 kickoff. So stick with XFLNewsHub.com for all your latest information. Follow us on all the social medias. That's XFLNewsHub.com. Remember it. Write it down. XFLNewsHub.com. All right, we are back. Now, before we get into our question of the week, we need to hit the social medias first and get people's take on what's going on in the world of XFL. So let's first talk about what's going on our Twitter account on what is your favorite day of the week for football and why. This was put out by the XFL Tampa Bay. JJ Preaches says, I'm a Saturday football guy. To me, Saturday is synonymous with football. So clearly, JJ Preaches is a college football person. And really, if you have no sports going on that weekend, having Saturday games and Sunday games actually is a pretty good idea, even though like we're so used to, at least for me as an NFL fan, I'm so used to watching football on Sundays, whereas I'm not used to watching football on Saturdays. I mean, our family is a Virginia Tech Hokies nation fandom. My brother went to Virginia Tech, so we check in on the games on Saturdays, but having a cross-section of Saturday and Sunday games, I think, is going to be great. MDR8892, same thing, favorite day of the week for football. It says Saturday morning. You can drink and not have to nurse a hangover at work like you would on a Sunday. Spoken like a true NFL fan. As a person who used to drink and don't really do that anymore, I can remember sometimes having to go to work on a Sunday after going to a Ravens game. I've explained before in the podcast that I used to drink and don't really anymore. But back in the day when I was a Ravens season ticket holder and we would go to the games, and sometimes we would have a lot of fun and we'd have to go to work the next day, and sometimes we didn't go to work, which honestly, the game started getting a little too rowdy and a little too non-friendly and just a big drink fest. That was one of the reasons why I kind of was like, about season tickets. Now, I'll say that the XFL, as long as they go that family route, I think that's what you're saving. I've looked at the NFL games when you watch on TV, and I mean, they are not as crowded as they used to be, and I think that's a reason why. But fans like to have fun, and a definitely Saturday game would save you, at least from taking any time off. On to Jim Zorn to join the XFL coaching ranks, allegedly, by Alex Marvez. On the Facebooks, Jameel says, the worst coach in Redskin history. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the Redskin fans to pipe up. Jack then says, Jameel Mendoza, I thought he was good. They didn't give him enough time and players. Joey says, didn't pay Jameel any mind because people in DC don't like a good thing when they've got it. Ooh, some defenders of Jim Zorn. Hilario says, congrats to Coach Jim Zorn. Daniel says, of the DC team? No. Jim Zorn will not be part of the DC team. We've got Pep Hamilton, and I'm happy with that. For me, if you lay out the 4 coaches right now, just have fun and email me, xflpodcast@xflnewshub.com. How would you rank the top 4 coaches right now? as who would win the championship. So right now you would have Bob Stoops at number 1. I think you would put Jim Haslett 2, Pep 3, Jim Zorn 4. That's how I would rank how I think their teams will finish, just based on who the coach is. I mean, we don't know anything about players. We don't know anything about quarterbacks. We don't know anything about depth. We don't know anything about anything. But we do know at least some background for some of these guys. And it will be real interesting to see where it plays out. These are 4 names. We still have 4 more to go. But really, the most important thing that we all want to know is what are some good team names? This is key to me. I don't like the AAF team names. I think they're kind of lame, and I just can't rep something like that. So I'm hoping, now the XFL's first iteration, they came up with some good team names. I'm hoping that the second iteration, they do just as good a job. So let's get into some team name ideas from you, the XFL fan. Grumpy Tiger said St. Louis Blues or St. Louis Redbirds. Anthony _ this is on Instagram. Anthony _ John 534 says New York Knights would be cool. Might be a little closer to New York Knicks though. Now, New York Hitmen was great. I know Vince, and I know Oliver Luck is going to. They have an ode to the old XFL, but I really would be stunned if they brought back any of the old XFL names. But the New York Hitmen is a good one. That is a good one. Anyway, Tampa Bay, Fitz Spags says Tampa Bay Babdits. Maybe he means bandits. Jimmy Weston says, I like our team name Birmingham Iron. I like the product and the way each player seems to respect each other. He's talking about the AAF, but Birmingham Iron, that's the one I make fun of the most. Vinners _ LOL says Albuquerque Conquistadors would be nice if there was a team in Albuquerque. But Conquistadors, not bad. JMC2DA Max says Los Angeles Commanders or Los Angeles Golden Eagles. Golden Eagles, maybe, yeah. Not that one. My favorite so far. Tim _ Ackerman. Put a team in Boston and call them the Stranglers. I think that is my best. I think that is the best so far. The Boston Stranglers would be a great name. A couple other people, including Stormy216 online, gave a thumbs up to the Boston Strangler. And finally, Justin's one, the Houston Traffic. I'm sorry, but DC would take over the Houston Traffic name any day of the week, my friend. DC Beltway, 270, Virginia, Northern Virginia, terrible. So we DC people would take if it was Traffic, which would be a bad name. On to the Facebook, we had over 100 comments about this question of team names. I'll just read some of them. Desmond says Washington Knights or DC Knights. Freddie, for Houston, Texas Rattlesnake. Well, now you got a little ode to Steve Austin. Houston Hurricanes, Texas Warriors, bring back the Gamblers, Houston Stallions. Gamblers, interesting. Stallions, maybe. Joel says Tampa Bay Outlaws. Andrew, St. Louis, Midwest Monsters or Warriors. Dustin, I think bring a team to New Orleans and reclaim the name the New Orleans Voodoo. That would be kind of cool. St. Louis Rivermen from Dan. Houston Roughnecks from Chris. Scott, and I really like this one. St. Louis Spirits with the spirit of St. Louis playing in the logo. I like that one. Ryan says Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks. Again, Scott, another Scott, St. Louis Spirit of St. Louis. Love that. Jason says Columbus Rage. Daniel, DC Dragons, DC Blitz, DC Presidents, DC Dogs. Harder than I think to think of a name. Yes. DC Dragons, there's nothing DC about dragons. The Blitz, it's a football term. DC Presidents, I'm not excited about presidents. Dogs, It's tough. Chris says, bring a team to Lehigh Valley, great sports area. You would need a team outside the larger NFL cities. Okay. Jonathan's got a nice big list. We'll check this. New York Empires. I like that one. Washington Sens. I think he's thinking about Senators. I think that's a good one. Seattle Ferries. St. Louis Mustangs. Houston Outlaws. I like that one. Dallas Longhorns. Not a bad one. Tampa Bay Rodents. LA Extreme. Jonathan's got some good ones there. Dave, Detroit Demolition, or Bring Back Detroit Drive. St. Louis. Dave, St. Louis, shove it up your ass stains. Not very nice. Good. I don't think that's very marketable, Dave. Don't think it's very marketable. Some others. Brad, Tampa Bay Pirates, or Tampa Bay Swords. Ron, Seattle Prime, brought to you by Amazon. Hey, that's good. That's easy. They'd pay. That would be a nice little advertising deal. Tracy, Tampa Bay Hammerheads, Sharks, Blackjacks. Another name for the Jolly Roger, Raiders, or Pirates. Hammerheads would be kind of interesting. Jim, St. Louis Bluebirds for the Cardinals and the Blues. Phoenix Gila Monsters. Darren, Kansas City Dorothys. Oh my. Some others, Michael. It should be kept classy and related to the city, as the St. Louis. I think the Knights or the Clydesdales or even the Archers would be great. Then there is the Browns as a salute to the old St. Louis Browns baseball team using their old logo, but can't really use that. Also is the Big Red as a slap in the face to the NFL. I like the name Stallions, but I am not in favor of it since there is an AAF team using it. True. I like the St. Louis Archers. Now, I like Archer the cartoon. I kind of thought of that first, but the Archers would be kind of cool. I'm down with that. We need a team in Idaho. So I'd say, this is from Robert, so I'd say Idaho Explorers or Boise Burn. Joseph says Washington Fire Bruce Allens. I'm sure that might be copyrighted. Some others, Rick, St. Louis in no particular order, Stallions, Archers, Rivermen, Riverhogs, Spirit, Renegades, Gunners. I'm liking the Archers. Lorenzo, Los Angeles Beast Mode. Okay. David, another St. Louis Archer with a bow and arrow and the arch in the background. Best idea yet, I know. George, how about the Tampa Bay Gars? It can be used for the fish or short for cigars, which Tampa is known for. Thoughts? Tampa Bay Stacy says Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks. Let's go with some others. Brandon, maybe the St. Louis team should be called the Eagles in honor of Senator Tom Eagleton, who will bring the Rams here. Or maybe instead of calling them St. Louis, to be determined, perhaps the city name be Mississippi Valley. Be Mississippi Valley Admirals. Don, Washington Federals. And Cash says, bring back the San Francisco Demons. And finally, Ronnie, Boston Nitro or New England Nitro. I think it's time we had an XFL team. No, Boston, you cannot have an XFL team. You have won way too much. And you need to take a back seat and wait for a little while before you're allowed in. Okay? Because you win too much. What are we going to call them? Boston Brady's? Boston 10 rings or whatever you have? Anyway, good names. I'm really liking St. Louis Archers as one. It'll be really interesting and fun to see if any of these names actually come to fruition once they come out with the names. So anyway, that's it for the show this week. So next week, we have an article up today about Colin Kaepernick. It made me get thinking, and a lot of people talking. Name one big name player that could play in the XFL. This person would need to generate a ton of interest in the league. Colin Kaepernick is a name. Tim Tebow has been a name. There's been others out there. So think of Johnny Football. There have been these names out there. Who do you think, like, Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown. Just some big names that could potentially make. Now, I guarantee you they won't. They've been holding out for tons of money. They're not going to get it in the XFL. But it would be really interesting to even get some big name people to come into the XFL. So for next week's show, the question of the week, name a big name player that could make their way to the XFL. And I know there's other ones that don't know what they're thinking. So if you want to be part of the show, remember you can tweet us, email, and phone calls. You can email podcast@xflnewshub.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, which is growing. XFL News Hub. Just type it in, XFL News Hub. And remember, I'd really appreciate it if you spread the word and leave us a review on iTunes. We'll read it on the show and give you a little props. And remember, you can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Stitcher. It's so much more exciting. I'm excited about this week that's going on in the XFL. I love your team names. Great interaction with you guys. And that's it for this week's show, y'all. Stay tuned to XFLNewsHub.com for all the latest breaking XFL news. Thanks for listening. God bless you all, and I will see you all later.